Hi everyone, welcome back to the Stitches and Scribbles podcast. My name is Erin, and today I do have things to show you today, but I figured I would change it up a little bit because I've had quite a few podcasts in a row where I haven't really had that much stuff to show you because I've been pretty much powering through one project. So instead of doing that, I picked kind of a different topic from usual to talk to you about, but we'll get to that in a minute. I do have one whip, which if you've been watching the last couple podcasts, you have seen this whip many times at this point. But it is the shawl that I'm making for my friend for her wedding. I think I am finally getting close to being done. Like, the end is in sight. But it is this beautiful Granny Meets Virus shawl. I know it's getting close to the end because it doesn't fit all on screen anymore on my camera. Where's my stitch marker? It's right here. It's this little pearl. So I did most of a granny section and 3 rows or 3 repeats of the virus stitch in the past week, which is actually quite a lot because of how big it is now. This is my, let's see, 3rd granny section and 4th virus section. I will do at least another granny section, possibly another virus section after that, because I haven't decided yet if I want it to end with like a ruffly border or with a straight edge. And you'd get the straight edge with the granny stitch and the ruffly edge by ending with virus stitch. So I haven't decided yet, but I think it's looking pretty good. I just started the 3rd skein of the yarn that I'm using, although again, if you've been watching the podcast, you would already know this, but I am working 2 yarns together. I'm going to hold up the other one because it's not tangled. I'm using the Go Handmade Glitter Deluxe from Hobbii in silver. This is the gold one for a different project. And I am using the soft alpaca lace in color 45, which I believe was called Ivory. So I'm holding those 2 together to get a sparkly yet lightweight, warm, fluffy shawl. So I bought 4 skeins of that yarn originally. I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to actually get to the 4th one, which means I can use it for another project, which I'm actually kind of excited about because I really like that yarn. So the end is in sight. I think I can finish it this week. Maybe. I will definitely finish it this week if I only do another granny section. If I try to do a granny section and a virus section, that might be too much, but we'll see how it goes. So that is my one and only whip. I do have other like half-finished projects lying around, but that's the only one that I worked on this week, which is why it's the only one I'm showing you, because everything else would have not progressed any further than the last time I showed it to you. I do, however, have one finished object, and that's because you're getting a tutorial on Friday. I noticed, it's not like I just noticed this, I've noticed for a while that my hexagon cardigan tutorials are some of the most highly watched videos on my channel, and it definitely seems like you all would be interested in another one. So I did create a new hexagon cardigan design. It is this one, so it's a little hard to see when it's on the bear, so maybe I'll have to take it off so that I can show you. But this hexagon cardigan uses the farmhouse granny square motif. So you can see on the little cardigan, it actually has those puff stitches running up the corners and then double crochet in between. So definitely just kind of a fun twist on the granny square cardigan. It also makes that little diamond shape with the puff stitches in the back just because of how it's sewn up. But I think this turned out so cute. So you're getting that tutorial on Friday. I have kind of gone back and forth with how I film my granny square tutorials because this will now be the 4th one that I've done. So the very first one I did was just the classic granny square hexagon cardigan. And that one I also made a cardigan for this little teddy bear. But the other 2 I did full-size ones that were meant for me to wear, which was very fun. I still had fun making those sweaters. I wear them a lot. But it makes making the tutorial a lot more challenging because I have to film a whole sweater in order to do that. And sweaters take a really long time. So since it works for these tutorials to be really, really small scale, I just went with that for this one. Although I do want to make a farmhouse granny square cardigan at some point in the future. I've got a nice brown sweater quantity of yarn that I think would look really cute with that stitch. So you'll probably see it pop up again, but I wanted to give you kind of a sneak preview for what was going to be in the tutorial coming out on Friday. So make sure you're subscribed, have the notifications, all that stuff, so that you can be aware of it when it comes out. But because those are the only two yarny things I worked on this weekend, I was kind of sitting and trying to figure out what I could do to continue showing you things during this podcast without it being another like under 30-minute podcast, although we'll see how much I talk about each one of these things and how that goes. But I decided that since I do have quite a substantial crafty library, I would start showing you some of the books that I use for patterns. I did split this, so there'll be another podcast episode of this sometime in the future with my knitting books and possibly knitting and all other crafts, because I don't have very many in the like other crafts department. I actually don't really have that many knitting books either. It's mostly crochet books. But for today, I figured I'd show you all of the crochet and Tunisian crochet books that I have, just as something fun to kind of fill in this podcast while I'm on Whip Island with that shawl that I'm working on. So I'm just going to go through all of my crochet books. I have them stacked in front of me. I'll tell you if I've used any of the patterns from the book, how I liked it, stuff like that, and we'll just dive in. So I'm going to start with one that I know is one of the older books in my collection because I believe I got it in high school. But this one is called Crochet Bouquet by Suzanne Thompson. Easy designs for dozens of flowers. And this one, as you can tell by the fact that it is both water damaged and has a bunch of sticky notes in it, I have definitely used this one a lot over the years. I'm trying to see if there's a way for me to show you some of the things that I do from this book, or that I know I have done from this book. I know I have used some of their like little flower patterns to make pins for myself, and actually when I was in high school I was a really big fan of putting flowers in my hair when I wore my hair up, so I would make flowers from this book and then put them on bobby pins or like the little snap hair clips to make them. But they've got, let's see if I can even show this. I'm trying to not show the pattern is what I'm doing, because you should buy the book if you want the pattern. But they had these little pom-pom flowers. I know I made a lot of those. What are some other ones I did? I think they're showing this being crocheted with like lanyard string on a shower curtain, but I definitely made this flower design a lot. And I like this book too because they show you all the flower designs, but they also show you some ideas for it. You can see that they show like sewing them onto a pillow to make an embroidered pillow. There's some more realistic flowers in here, so like I can't show this one because of how it's laid out on the page, but there's a really pretty daffodil pattern that I know I've made before. There's chrysanthemums that look fairly realistic. There's orchids. There's pansies. I know I've definitely made the pansies before, as well as the poppies and the roses. But there really are a lot of designs on here. I thought this was also cute, even though I've never made it. But making a flower out of the like raffia stuff and putting it on a straw hat. They show it as decorations for bags, all sorts of things. So I really, really like this book. I definitely spilled something on it at some point because there are pages that are like purple. Don't know how that happened. Also, it looks like the whole back of the book got water damaged. So something happened where I spilled many, many years ago. But this book, just based on the style in it, looks like it must have come out in like the early 2000s. I don't know where I got it. I'm trying to see if I can find a copyright date. 2008. So I was right. Early 2000s. I believe I got this from Barnes & Noble, or someone got it for me from Barnes & Noble, so I don't know if they still have it, but you could definitely just do a Google search for the title, and I'm guessing Amazon might be your best bet, or like a thrift book site like Thrift Books or something like that. But highly recommend this book, especially if you're into making floral motifs or like small projects. These make really cute patches and pins on jackets and hats and things like that. So highly recommend this book. And because I know I use this book as a beginning crocheter, because I learned how to crochet in 7th grade and I had this in high school. So I was crocheting for under 5 years by the time that I got it, most likely. And this was before there were a lot of like crafty tutorials on YouTube. So I know that I was purely following the directions in the book to make these things, and it still worked for me as both as a young new and as a young new crocheter who did not have video tutorials available yet. Highly recommend this book. So this one has definitely been well loved. Going back to the flowers for a second, they're also a really cute addition if you're making prayer shawls, to make a little flower with a brooch or a pin to pin it to the shawl. I've seen that done a couple of times. Moving on, I think I've got 3 Tunisian crochet books, so I think I'll just dive into those first. So the first 2 I got were both just from Amazon. It's called Tunisian Crochet Volume 1 and Volume 2 by Petra Tornak Zimmerman. They're both by the same author. So Volume 1 is basic and textured stitches. Volume 2 is colored and striped stitches. So I got these when I was first learning Tunisian crochet. Even though like YouTube tutorials were very much available, I only learned how to Tunisian crochet probably in 2020. Like, I think maybe that was one of the things I did when I was bored during quarantine. If you go back in my YouTube videos, you can probably find evidence of when I learned how to do Tunisian crochet, because it definitely lines up with my YouTube timeline. But I got this book so that I would be able to flip through and look for the names of the stitches, because you can search for Tunisian crochet stitches a million times on YouTube, but if you don't know the actual names of the stitch, it can be kind of hard to find them. But I also found that the directions in here were pretty easy to follow. And again, I can't show you the actual pages because it's a book. But they show the patterns on a grid, kind of like how Fair Isle knitting patterns would look, with like codes for the stitches, if that makes sense. So really easy to follow. Definitely was helpful for getting the names of stitches from both of these. I've definitely used stitches out of this one to make things. I haven't explored this one as much yet, just because I haven't done a ton of multicolored Tunisian crochet patterns, but there's some really cool ones on there, even just looking at the front cover. But I really like the amount of pictures and how they show the patterns in these books, so definitely a good find, and I got these off of Amazon. The next and final crochet book that I have is going to be very familiar because I think everybody scrambled to buy it when it came out. But this is the Tunisian Crochet Handbook by Toni Lipsey. I have not made anything from this book yet. I think because I ran into a point where I realized I had too much yarn, so I wasn't going to buy new yarn, but all of the projects in here I would have wanted to buy new yarn for, if that makes sense. But the projects and photos in here are absolutely gorgeous. There's definitely some very beginner patterns in here as well as some advanced ones. There's also some color work ones. Let's see if I can do this. But some very fun, I believe this is a doormat. Yeah, it's a doormat. So very, very cute patterns in here. Some wearable things, some home decor things. I also really like that in this book she shows that Tunisian crochet is a great base for cross stitch, because there's a couple designs that have cross stitch over the top. Here's one of them. We'll go this way. I think I'm not showing too much of the pattern there, but this little wall hanging. So very, very cute. Obviously I love Toni Lipsey. I think I've talked about her in the podcast before, but she's on YouTube with the username TL Yarn Crafts, and love her videos. Would not have learned how to Tunisian crochet without her, so I was really excited when she came out with this gorgeous, gorgeous book. Definitely looking forward to making some of the patterns in here in the future. And yeah, that's all I've got to say about this one, because I haven't actually made anything from it yet. Alright, we're gonna just dive into another one that I haven't actually used yet, mostly because it's so funny, and I've literally had it sitting on my shelf for years just as is, because I almost don't want to make it because the fact that it exists is just so funny. But you know how at Barnes & Noble there's a section of like clearance books, but there's also like little craft kits in there? So somebody, like in a white elephant gift exchange, purchased this crocheted sweaters for cats, and inside this kit is a book as well as yarn. Now we get to see if I like took the yarn out at some point. Nope, the yarn is still in here. So you get some lovely purple and gold yarn. Too bad I live in Wisconsin and those are Viking colors. A plastic crochet hook that would probably drive me nuts if I actually tried to use it. As well as the book on how, I can't even get that back in here. That'll have to wait till I'm off camera to put the crochet hook back. But this little tiny Sweaters for Cats book. There's actually quite a lot of patterns in here. But the one that you end up making with the kit is this one, which is called Varsity Stripes. So haven't made this obviously because the yarn is still in the kit. But I think it was just too funny to not keep on my shelf. So that is where it has remained all of these years, just waiting for the right person who needs a cat sweater made for them. The other problem with this is none of the cats that I grew up with, because I think I got this quite a while ago. I don't have my own cat at the moment, but the cats I grew up with still live with my parents. None of them would tolerate having a sweater put on them, like end of story. Wouldn't happen. You'd get scratched trying to do it. So I don't have a cat who would actually wear it. I do have one friend whose cat is fine with wearing sweaters, so she may eventually be the recipient of one of those. But for now, it just looks funny on my shelf, and we'll just leave it as is. The next, what order do I want to do this in? So I'll save my two like fun books for the end, but I have three more that are basically crochet reference books. First one, which with the number of sticky notes, you can tell I've used it, is the Crochet Stitch Dictionary by Sarah Hazel. I definitely purchased this on Amazon, but I have seen it elsewhere. I've also seen very similar things. Usually at half-price books, there's at least one book that's something like this. But I've used this one a lot. I really, really like the visuals in this book of, I'm going to just kind of show the top of the page. So it'll kind of put stitches that are similar all on the same page and show you very clearly the differences between them, as well as just some good images overall. There's not a lot in this book of like how to then use these stitches in projects. That's kind of more up to you. So if you're looking for like actual projects to do, this is not a great book. But I really liked it just to look at the variety of crochet stitches that are out there, because there were tons in here that I'd never heard of. There's 200 different stitches in here. So definitely a great reference, and definitely great if you are like going to make a blanket or a scarf, something rectangular with simple shaping, and you're looking for a fun stitch. Books like this are going to be really, really helpful for you. So highly recommend this one specifically, but I also know there's plenty of similar books out there. Yeah. Crochet Stitch Dictionary by Sarah Hazel. Really, really like this one. The next one I did get from Half Price Books, and it's called the Crochet Handbook and Stitch Guide. So kind of similar to the last one. I did like that this one was a little bit smaller, but it's kind of similar in that it gives you some basics of crochet, but instead of just crochet stitches, you can see that there's some things about like motifs in here. There's, you know, directions for intarsia. Like, it's a little bit more broad in terms of what it teaches you. It does have a good, like, stitch directory in there, but it also has a lot of motifs in a variety of shapes and sizes. I also like knit and crochet books that are this style of printing, where it's like a notebook with a cover around it, just because it lays really flat once you have it open, and you don't have to worry about the pages like flipping back together. So for design purposes, I really like that aspect of the book, just that it lays flat. I think I've made a couple things out of here, but I can't remember what they were, but I know that I have used it for something. Couldn't tell you what it was, but I definitely have used it and enjoyed using it. It also gives directions on like how to include buttons and zippers and stuff like that. So lots of other helpful tips in here as well. And this is by, does it have an author listed? It does not have an author listed. It's just called the Crochet Handbook and Stitch Guide. So maybe this is, it says edited by Ruth Patrick. So no author listed, which is kind of interesting, but definitely got it from Half Price Books. You could probably find it on Amazon. Barnes & Noble has a very highly rotating selection of knit and crochet books. They kind of take the newest ones that are available, and others disappear like very, very quickly. So it's a great place to go if you're like looking for new knit and crochet books, but if you're looking for ones that have been around for a while, or like reference type books, like the last couple I've shown you, it's probably not the greatest place to go. They also very rarely have Tunisian crochet books. I have seen Tunisian crochet books more frequently at resale bookshops than I have at Barnes & Noble. So just keep that in mind as you're looking for things. Unfortunately, that does mean that Amazon is usually the best place to look for them, even though like I'd prefer to get my books elsewhere. For craft books, if you're looking for a very specific title, it's a little bit easier to find on Amazon than anywhere else. The next one that I have is Beyond the Square Crochet Motifs by Edie Ekman. So this says it's 144 circles, hexagons, triangles, squares, and other unexpected shapes. Looks like this. It's that fun binder style binding again. I got this in a Secret Santa gift exchange from a friend, along with a chunky crochet hook, which is super fun. I have definitely made motifs out of this book as well, and what I really like about this book is that the motifs are sorted by shape. So let me kind of show the top corner there, trying to do it without showing the pattern, but up in the corners you can see it says triangle, so all the triangle pages are kind of blue at the top so that you can easily see what shapes you're looking at, and all similar shapes are sorted together. But I love this book. This one also has really clear pictures. It has some directions in the back of like how to arrange motifs if you want space between them or don't want space between them, stuff like that. Just a lot of really good info in here, and really, really pretty motif designs. I think I've used these maybe for a set of coasters or like Christmas ornaments. I can't remember what I was working on out of these. I definitely looked through it to try to figure out more square patterns to see if there were any that I could use to make hexagon cardigans, and there were a few in here. that were simple enough that I could find them elsewhere. So I know that it would be okay to recreate it as a hexagon cardigan. But yeah, the pictures in here are fabulous. The instructions are really, really clear. Highly recommend this one as well. I believe the friend who got this for me also got it off of Amazon, but he was someone who is not familiar with knit and crochet things, so I think he was just looking based off of the list that we made for that event. So Amazon again wins out. Next one I know I got from Barnes & Noble, but it was many, many years ago, so they probably don't have it anymore. This one also I believe I got in high school, and I know I made a project out of it, but I believe I no longer have that project, so I don't have it to show you, but this is the book Crowbots by Nellie Payou, P-A-I-L-L-O-U-X, Payou. Very, very cute designs, as you can see by the cover. I know that I was so excited to get this book, but I think that my crochet skills were not quite good enough at the time that I got this book to actually be able to make all of the patterns in there. So this is something I'm definitely going to have to revisit. I think maybe this is the one that I made because it had the simplest shapes and I just didn't do the little headphones, but I don't remember which one it was. I don't even know if flipping through it would help me figure it out. But very, very cute little robot designs. There's quite a variety. I'm trying to see if there's a picture that just shows a bunch of them in here. I don't think it does, but you can see on the back some of the little robots. Very cute amigurumi book, but definitely not for beginners, and it actually called for a lot of kind of weird supplies. Like some of the little springs on the robot are made with the springs that are in click pens and stuff like that. So definitely not, you need more than just yarn to do these. I think some of them also had safety pins as some of the robotic attachments and stuff like that. But definitely a fun book if you know someone who's into both techie stuff and crochet, or if you want to crochet something for somebody who's very techie. Actually, now that I'm looking through here again, I think this is actually the one that I made at some point in high school, but I don't have it anymore, so it doesn't matter. But very, very cute. Also one of my oldest crochet books in my collection. The last one that I have is one that I saw all over on TikTok. I was so excited to order it. Got it from Amazon again. But it is the 3D Granny Squares crochet book. So it's 3D Granny Squares, 100 crochet patterns for pop-up Granny Squares by Katie Moore, Sharina Moore, and Celine Seman. Or Saman. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. But this book is, first of all, absolutely beautiful. The colors in here are amazing. They sort the Granny Square designs by theme. So there's a bunch of food ones at the beginning. But they also show you projects for how to use them. So this one is a little teapot Granny Square, and they turned it into a pincushion because it's very three-dimensional. I think those are going to be the best ones to show you. Obviously, you can use them to make coasters. These are the cute little apple ones. But there's just so many designs. I thought that the cherry square was adorable. I'd love to make a cardigan out of just the cherry squares. There's pineapples, strawberries. Then we've got animals. So there's sheep, pigs, bunnies, mice, llamas. Really, really adorable patterns in here. I've definitely used some of the squares, although now I know I've used, there's a sunflower one in here that I've done. There's under the sea creatures, there's a little sun hat, sand castles, lots of beach things, some holiday ones. A little frog, succulents, lots of flowers. Where's the one that I used? Oh yeah, this sunflower patch I definitely used to make a little bag for my friend for the Renaissance Fair. But there's holiday ones, so like you could totally make a Christmas sweater with all of the Christmas ones and it would be very, very cute. Highly recommend this book. It also would be great if you are wanting to do some crochet wall art, to just do a single granny square and make it into a mini tapestry or frame it would be really, really sweet. There were lots of great baby item ideas in there with all the animal squares. I've definitely seen people make baby blankets with all animals or all fruits or like some theme to go with all the squares. But there's a lot of stuff in there to make some really, really cute motifs. So that is my last crochet book in my crochet library. Yeah, so I've accumulated quite a bit over the years, but most of those I'd say I purchased in the last 5 years, other than the flower one and the Crowbots one. I think those are the only ones that remain from like my very early crochet days. When I eventually do the knitting one, there's a couple of knitting books that are old like that one as well, just because I've been knitting longer than I've been crocheting. But yeah, that's my crochet library. Leave a note in the comments if there are any crochet books that you absolutely love, found really helpful or really inspiring. Leave those in the comments below. I'd love to see them to add some more ideas to my library. But that's going to be it for this podcast. I hope you liked the kind of change up format today, since there weren't a lot of projects to show you. If you want to follow me on other forms of social media, that information will be in the description box below so that you can check it out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.